Joining us now, CBS News political contributor Ashley Etienne. She formerly worked as Vice President Harris's communications director. Ashley, good morning. You know the challenge of any national campaign and candidate is to be prepared for the toughest broadsides that might come from an opponent. Rate Kamala Harris's response last night.
Listen, I thought it was a strong response. I mean, what I'm hearing from the campaign is she's going to continue to rise above the fray. That is the best way they think that they can contrast with someone like Donald Trump, that she's going to keep making this point that this election is about the past versus the future. No one wants to go back to a past, the Trump years, where racial violence was at an all-time high, where you had the president say that there are good people on both sides. The former president called on the Proud Boys to stand by. So she's going to continue to make that point, that that's not who we are as America. That's not who we want to be. And the American people are rallying behind her in unprecedented ways. $200 million she's raised in a little more than a year. Over 100,000 people have signed up to serve on her campaign, to volunteer. So they're feeling very good about this. And the strategy, from what I hear from them, is let Trump be Trump. The more that the American people see of him doing this kind of stuff, the more they're reminded of why they don't like him.
Ashley, let's look back at the past to sort of widen this out here. President Trump did perform better than expected with black men in 2020. And that campaign would very much like to peel off a few more votes from the black community. How much does this hurt those efforts, though, in your opinion?
Well, I've always sort of felt like this was overhyped. The number of support among black men for Donald Trump is really been overhyped. It was never a real threat to someone like Kamala Harris. It was more of a threat to Joe Biden. But now that Kamala Harris is actually in the race, we're seeing their internal polls are showing that she's really invigorated the African-American base, where Joe Biden was bleeding support among the base. She's plus 45 against Donald Trump with the base. So the more and the more that he actually shows himself, the more and the more he insults her, the more he mispronounces her names, the more that he leans into really insult the entire black community, the more the momentum will start to create and galvanize behind Vice President Harris. And I will say, and it's not just among black people who are offended by the former president's treatment of her. So that's the other benefit that she has, that race and gender are working to her advantage in this particular race in a way that it never has before.
Ashley, I'm not black. Fact check, true. But I'd like your observations on the combative nature.
We still love you.
I'm glad we're good on that. I'd like your evaluation of the combative nature of the exchanges between former President Trump and Rachel Scott. That's playing in that room, but it's also playing in a broader American living room.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of frustration I heard from my reporter friends that were in the room, and that frustration and disappointment and how NABJ handled this spilled over into outside of that room. In fact, I got dozens and dozens of text messages about how disappointed they were that they provided the former president this platform to not only insult black journalists, but the black community, and to insult Kamala Harris as well. So, I mean, the way that I think people are processing this is, it's more of the same with Donald Trump. No one was surprised by this, but it's going to play to her advantage, because she's going to be able to contrast and say, listen, which direction do we want to go in as a nation? Who are we as a nation? Are we what Donald Trump represents, which is division and hatred? Are we about solutions? Are we about unity? Are we about loving thy neighbor? That's the contrast she's going to continue to draw. So black women, wherein we were insulted by it, we're really even more dug in and motivated to go out and support Kamala Harris and make sure we take her across the finish line.
Ashley Etienne, we can feel your energy this morning. Thank you for joining us.